Former State Department official Brian Hook is with me now. So, Brian, U.S. Secretary of State John Kerry heading to the Middle East this week. He is seeking a way to urge calm. In his words, move things forward. What's the most positive outcome that can come from his trip?
I think the best outcome that can come from his trip is if President Abbas condemns the violence and assures everyone that the Temple Mount status quo has not changed. That's what's fueling the violence.
That is what is fueling the violence. I mean, to your point, we have seen this past month tons of attacks. So if you say for this site, which is considered holy by almost everybody in the region, that would be a baby step towards calm.
Right. The Israeli government has allowed all religions access to the Temple Mount since 1967, and it gave power to Islamic religious authorities under the patronage of Jordan to administer the Temple Mount complex. That is the status quo, and that status quo has not changed. And it would be very helpful if President Abbas and King Abdullah would assure their people that the status quo has not changed, because it's the falsehood of the changed status quo that is fueling the violence.
What do you think of Israeli police putting up this wall, which they say is temporary? Is that something that is going to be helpful in the fact that it protects citizens in the near term, and the fact that the Israeli government has said it is temporary?
The violence occurring now is emanating from Palestinian territories, and President Abbas has an obligation to prevent these kinds of attacks coming out of Palestine. And so if he is not going to enforce that and prevent that, then it's incumbent upon the Israeli government to try to enhance security barriers there to reduce the violence.
So, Brian, speaking of Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, he said social media is playing a big role in Palestinian attacks. He said it's essentially Osama bin Laden meets Mark Zuckerberg. He says what has been going on is due to the combination of the internet and Islamic extremism. It has been Osama bin Laden meets Facebook founder, understood, Mark Zuckerberg. Do you agree that social media is playing a role and is somehow, without having a side, becoming a new tool for terrorism?
One of the things that the Israeli government has discovered is that after terrorists commit murder, they leave behind Facebook pages that are inciting violence, claiming the status quo has changed. I think historically, a lot of the violence that you see coming out of Hamas was more of a top-down variety. We see now a shift in the terrorist dynamic where it is more bottom-up, and certainly social media is playing a tool. It's just something which they've seen on the various terrorists on their Facebook pages.
All right, Brian, we're always glad to have you with us. Thank you so much. Former State Department official joining us there, Brian Hook.